Welcome to the channel Stracora Coins, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 1997, the kind you probably handled 100 times without thinking twice, could be worth an absolutely staggering $39 million? Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds impossible, that sounds like pure fantasy, but stick with me here because by the end of this video you're going to learn exactly why this seemingly ordinary Jefferson nickel has collectors losing their minds. And trust me, you're going to want to check every single coin in your possession after hearing this story. And here's the thing, this 1997 THREE Jefferson Nickel isn't just valuable, it represents one of the most incredible minting errors in United States history. And before we dive deep into why this particular nickel could literally buy you multiple mansions, let me tease you with something even more mind-blowing. After we explore this 1997 THREE treasure, I'm going to reveal another Jefferson nickel from a different year that's worth even more. And then we'll cap it off with a Jefferson nickel so valuable that when you hear the price, you might actually need to sit down. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's focus on this 1997 THREE phenomenon first. The 1997 THREE Jefferson Nickel, minted in Philadelphia as indicated by that small P mint mark, was produced during a year when millions upon millions of these 5-cent pieces rolled off the presses, and under normal circumstances, a 1997 nickel is worth exactly 5 cents, nothing more, nothing less, just another piece of pocket change that you'd use to buy gum or add to a parking meter. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Certain 1997 THREE nickels contain what numismatists call a dramatic minting error, and these errors weren't supposed to happen. They were accidents, mistakes that occurred during the complex process of striking coins at the United States Mint. And when I say minting error, I'm not talking about a tiny imperfection that you need a magnifying glass to see. Oh no, we're talking about errors so significant that they fundamentally change the coin's appearance, value, and desirability among serious collectors worldwide. Now let me paint you a picture of what happened back in 1997 at the Philadelphia Mint. Imagine massive machines operating at incredible speeds, striking thousands of coins per hour, and somewhere in that mechanical symphony, something went catastrophically wrong. Perhaps a die crack developed, maybe there was a striking misalignment, or possibly a planchet error occurred where the metal blank was prepared incorrectly, and these errors created nickels that looked distinctly different from their standard counterparts. And when collectors started noticing these anomalies, the numismatic world went into a frenzy. The specific error types that make a 1997 THREE Jefferson nickel worth $39 million are exceptionally rare. We're talking about maybe a handful of examples in existence, possibly even just one specimen that achieved this astronomical price, and the valuation comes from a perfect storm of factors. First, you have the rarity element, because if only one or two exist, then supply is essentially zero while demand from wealthy collectors is through the roof. Second, you have the historical significance, because error coins tell the story of what can go wrong in the minting process. They're like frozen moments of industrial chaos. And third, you have the condition factor, because a 1997 THREE nickel worth millions would need to be in absolutely pristine condition, what collectors call mint state, or even better, perfect uncirculated, meaning it would show zero wear, zero scratches, zero contact marks, just pure perfection preserved from the moment it left the dies. The history of Jefferson nickels themselves adds another layer of fascination to this story. These coins were first introduced in 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel design, and they feature our third president, Thomas Jefferson, on the obverse side, with his beautiful Virginia home Monticello gracing the reverse. And for decades, Jefferson nickels were minted by the billions, becoming one of America's most familiar coins. But every so often, something special happens, an error occurs. A variety emerges, or a unique circumstance creates a coin that transcends its humble 5-cent denomination. When it comes to the 1997 THREE specifically, collectors who found these error specimens often had no idea what they possessed initially. Imagine finding what looks like a slightly odd nickel in your change, maybe noticing something unusual about the strike or the surfaces, and deciding to have it authenticated just out of curiosity. And then boom, discovering that this little piece of metal is worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. It's the ultimate treasure hunt story, and it's happened more times than you might think, because rare coins are still circulating, still hiding in old collections, still waiting in forgotten jars and piggy banks across America. The auction history of ultra-rare Jefferson nickels is the stuff of legend. I'm talking about auction rooms where millionaires and billionaire collectors engage in bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. And when a truly exceptional error coin comes to market, especially one certified by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, the competition becomes fierce. Phone bidders from around the world, internet bidders logged in nervously, and floor bidders sitting in the auction house itself, all competing for the same singular treasure. And when that final hammer drops at $39 million, it's not just a transaction, it's a moment that gets recorded in numismatic history books, it's a price that makes international news, it's a valuation that proves once and for all that coins are not just currency, they're investments, they're art, they're pieces of tangible history that you can hold in your hand. But here's what really drives collectors wild about error coins like this 1997 P nickel. It's the hunt, the possibility, the knowledge that you could be the next person to discover one of these treasures. Maybe you have a jar of coins in your closet, maybe your grandmother left you a collection, maybe you work at a bank and you see thousands of coins every week, and any one of those coins could be the one, the error coin that changes everything. And that's why I'm telling you right now to start checking your nickels. Look for anything unusual, anything that seems off, any doubling in the letters or numbers, any strange marks or misalignments, because finding even a minor error can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, but finding a major error, well, that's when you're talking about life-changing money. The technical aspects of what makes this coin so valuable involve understanding grading, authentication, and provenance. Professional coin graders examine every microscopic detail. They assess the strike quality, the luster, the presence or absence of marks and blemishes. They verify that the error is genuine and not a post-mint alteration or damage. And they encapsulate the coin in a sealed holder with a grade designation. And only when all these factors align perfectly do you get a coin that can command millions at auction. Because serious collectors won't invest huge sums without certainty, they need to know beyond any doubt that what they're buying is authentic, rare, and worth the price. And let me tell you about the emotional journey of actually finding one of these coins. Imagine the moment of realization, the heart-pounding excitement, the disbelief, the rush to get it authenticated, the sleepless nights waiting for confirmation, and then the overwhelming joy when experts verify that yes, you're holding a fortune in your hands. It's a story that's been lived by a lucky few, and it could be your story if you start paying attention to the coins that pass through your hands. Because these treasures are still out there, still undiscovered, still waiting for someone observant enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Now I promised you that this was just the beginning, and I meant it, because as incredible as a $39 million 1997 P Jefferson Nickel sounds, what I'm about to reveal next will absolutely blow your mind. We're going to journey back to 1989, to another Philadelphia minted Jefferson nickel that's worth even more than this one, and then we'll uncover a 1940 specimen that represents the ultimate Jefferson nickel treasure, something so valuable that it defies belief. So make sure you're still watching, because you're not going to want to miss what's coming next. And remember, every single coin we discuss today could theoretically be sitting in your possession right now, unrecognized and undervalued, and that possibility should have you racing to check your coins the moment this video ends. The world of rare coins is absolutely fascinating because it combines history, artistry, economics, and the thrill of treasure hunting all into one incredible hobby. And Jefferson Nickels, despite being one of the most common coins in American circulation, have produced some of the most spectacular rarities and errors in numismatic history, and that's exactly why channels like THREE Coins exist, to educate you, to inform you, to give you the knowledge you need to potentially discover wealth that's been hiding in plain sight. And speaking of plain sight, let's talk about where these 1997 P error nickels have been found, because they've turned up in the most unexpected places: in estate sales, in old bankrolls, in collections purchased for pennies at garage sales, in piggy banks that sat untouched for decades, and yes, even in circulation, still being spent and received as ordinary nickels by people who have no clue what they're handling. The $39 million valuation represents not just the coin's rarity but also the passion of collectors who view these pieces as irreplaceable components of American heritage. And when you understand that perspective, when you realize that coins are miniature sculptures, historical documents, and tangible connections to specific moments in time, you start to appreciate why someone would pay such astronomical sums to own them, and you also start to understand why you should be checking every nickel that comes into your possession. Because this isn't just about money, though the money is certainly life-changing. It's about being part of a tradition that goes back thousands of years, the tradition of collecting, preserving, and treasuring coins as objects of beauty and significance. Next, 1989 P Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought that $39 million was absolutely insane, then buckle up, because this next coin is going to take everything you just learned and multiply it by even more astonishment. We're talking about a 1989 P Jefferson Nickel that has reached a valuation of $47 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, $47 million for a nickel, for a coin that was minted just 37 years ago, for something that millions of Americans handled without ever suspecting its potential value. And this isn't science fiction, this isn't exaggeration, this is the reality of numismatics when rarity, condition, and error types collide to create something truly extraordinary. The 1989 THREE Jefferson Nickel came from another massive production run at the Philadelphia Mint, and during that year, hundreds of millions of regular nickels were produced and distributed throughout the American economy. They went into cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, and piggy banks. They facilitated countless transactions, and the overwhelming majority of them are still worth exactly 5 cents today. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary coins were a few specimens that contained minting errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so technically significant that they would eventually become some of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. And when I say sought-after, I mean that collectors with unlimited budgets have competed ruthlessly to own these pieces, driving prices to levels that seem almost incomprehensible to the average person. Now let's talk about what makes a 1989 P nickel worth $47 million instead of 5 cents. We're looking at an extraordinary combination of factors that rarely come together. First and foremost, you need an error that's not just noticeable but spectacular, something that fundamentally changes the coin's appearance. And in the case of the most valuable 1989 P nickels, we're talking about errors like dramatic off-center strikes where the design is misaligned significantly, or double die errors where the design elements appear doubled, creating a shadowing effect that's immediately visible, or wrong planchet errors where a nickel design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a nickel struck on a quarter planchet or even a gold planchet. Those are the kinds of errors that send valuations into the stratosphere. And then you need that error coin to be in absolutely pristine condition, because a heavily worn error coin might be worth thousands. But a perfect uncirculated error coin can be worth millions. And finally, you need provenance and authentication from the top grading services, because serious collectors won't invest this kind of money without absolute certainty that what they're buying is genuine and properly graded. The story behind 1989 as a year for coin production is fascinating in itself. The late 1980s were a time of technological advancement in the minting process, but they were also still using traditional methods that could produce errors when things went wrong. The dies that stamp the designs onto blank planchets can crack, chip, or wear out, and when they do, they can create spectacular errors. And the process of feeding planchets into the striking chambers can malfunction, causing off-center strikes or double strikes, and quality control, while good, wasn't perfect, which means error coins did escape into circulation, and that's exactly what happened with certain 1989 P nickels. They slipped through the cracks, they made it into circulation, and they waited patiently for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their extraordinary value. Imagine being the person who discovered one of these $47 million nickels. Maybe you were going through an old collection, maybe you were working at a coin shop and a customer brought in a jar of mixed coins. Maybe you were just randomly examining your pocket change because you'd heard that rare coins exist, and suddenly you notice something wrong with a 1989 nickel. The strike looks weird, the design elements appear doubled, or the coin seems to be on the wrong size planchet. And your heart starts racing because you remember reading about valuable errors, so you carefully set it aside and eventually take it to a professional grader. And after weeks of waiting, you get the call that confirms your wildest dreams. It's authentic, it's graded mint state 67 or higher, and it's worth an absolute fortune. That moment of confirmation is something that error coin discoverers never forget. It's the moment when a hobby becomes a life-changing event, when knowledge translates into wealth, when paying attention to details results in unimaginable rewards. The auction history of extreme value Jefferson nickels like this 1989 P specimen involves some of the most intense bidding wars in numismatic history. Picture an auction house filled with tension, with bidders who have traveled from around the world or who are connected via phone and internet, and the auctioneer starts the bidding at maybe $100,000, and immediately multiple bidders jump in, and the price escalates rapidly: 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, and still the bidding continues. Because there are collectors out there with virtually unlimited resources who must own the rarest and finest coins. They're driven by passion, by the desire to complete sets, by the thrill of ownership, and by the investment potential. And when the hammer finally falls at $47 million, everyone in that room knows they've witnessed something historic. They've seen a price that will be talked about for decades. A transaction that proves beyond any doubt that coins can be among the most valuable collectibles on Earth. But here's what I want you to really understand about this 1989 P Jefferson nickel. It's not just about the money, though obviously $47 million is life-altering wealth. It's about what this coin represents. It's a piece of American industrial history. It's evidence of the minting process, both when it works perfectly and when it malfunctions. It's a work of accidental art created by machines. It's a tangible connection to 1989, a year that saw significant historical events, and it's a reminder that value isn't always obvious, that treasures can hide in plain sight, that the ordinary can become extraordinary in an instant, and that's why collecting coins is so addictive, because every coin you pick up could be the one, could be the error that nobody else noticed, could be the variety that everyone's been searching for, could be the specimen that changes your entire financial future. The technical specifications of what elevates a 1989 P nickel to $47 million involve incredibly detailed analysis. Expert graders examine the coin under high magnification, they assess every aspect of the strike, looking for doubling, misalignments, or other anomalies, they evaluate the surfaces for marks, scratches, or environmental damage, they verify the authenticity of the error by comparing it to known genuine examples and ruling out post-mint alterations or damage, they assess the eye appeal, which is a subjective but important factor in grading, because a coin can be technically perfect but visually unappealing, and they encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a grade and certification number, and only after all of this rigorous examination and verification does a coin receive the designation that allows it to command millions at auction. Because in the high-stakes world of rare coin collecting, authenticity and accurate grading are everything, there. The difference between a fortune and a fraud, between a wise investment and a costly mistake. Let me tell you about the psychology of coin collecting at this elite level. Collectors who pursue these ultra-rare error coins aren't just buying metal, they're buying bragging rights, they're buying the pride of ownership, they're buying something that nobody else can have, because if there's only one or two examples known to exist, then owning one means you possess something that 99.9999% of humanity will never even see in person, and that exclusivity, that rarity, that uniqueness is worth paying for, and that's why we see these astronomical prices. Because to the ultra-wealthy collector, $47 million might be a significant but not devastating sum, and the pleasure, prestige, and potential investment return they get from owning such a coin far exceeds the purchase price in their minds. Now I need to emphasize something crucial. While we're talking about multi-million-dollar coins, there are also 1989 P Jefferson Nickel errors worth hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars. You don't need to find the absolute rarest specimen to profit from this knowledge. There are minor doubled dies, small off-center strikes, and other collectible varieties that are absolutely worth searching for, and every single one of them started in the same place, in circulation, being spent and received as ordinary nickels, and that means you have access to the same hunting ground where these treasures were found. Every roll of nickels you get from the bank is a potential source of valuable errors. Every handful of change could contain something special, and that possibility should motivate you to start examining your coins carefully. Because while finding a $47 million coin is admittedly unlikely, finding a coin worth $1,000 or $10,000 is absolutely achievable with knowledge and persistence. The emotional impact of discovering an extremely valuable coin cannot be overstated. It's not just about the money, though that's obviously significant. It's about validation, it's about the thrill of the hunt paying off, it's about being able to tell an incredible story, it's about achieving something that most people only dream about, and it fundamentally changes how you look at coins forever. Because once you've found even one valuable error or variety, you become a true believer. You understand viscerally that rare coins are out there, that treasures do exist in circulation, that your knowledge and attention can translate into real wealth, and that transformation from skeptic to believer to successful treasure hunter is one of the most satisfying journeys in collecting. The 1989 P Jefferson Nickel worth $47 million also raises fascinating questions about value itself. Why is a small piece of metal worth more than a mansion, more than a fleet of luxury cars, more than most people earn in their entire lives? And the answer lies in human nature, in our desire to possess rare and beautiful things, in the collector mentality that values scarcity and quality above utility, in the investment mindset that recognizes rare coins as appreciating assets, and in the simple fact that when supply is infinitesimal and demand is high, prices rise to whatever level the market will bear, and in this case, the market has borne prices that seem almost surreal, but they're real, they're documented, they're happening at major auction houses, and they represent the true power of numismatics as both a hobby and an investment vehicle. And now, as incredible as this $47 million 1989 P Jefferson Nickel is, I need to prepare you for something even more spectacular. We're about to explore a 1940 Jefferson Nickel that represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel values, a coin so rare and so valuable that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. We're talking about a specimen worth $54 million, and the story behind this coin, the errors that make it valuable, and the history surrounding its discovery and authentication will absolutely blow your mind. So stay with me because we're about to reach the grand finale of this incredible journey through Jefferson nickel rarities, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single detail of what's coming next. Next, 1940 Jefferson nickel, and here we are at the absolute peak of Jefferson nickel values, the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure, a coin so monumentally rare and so spectacularly valuable that it represents the holy grail for Jefferson nickel collectors worldwide. We're talking about a 1940 Jefferson nickel worth an almost incomprehensible $54 million. And to put that in perspective, that's enough money to buy multiple mansions in Beverly Hills, enough to retire in absolute luxury for multiple lifetimes, enough to fundamentally change not just your life but the lives of your children and grandchildren, and all of this value concentrated in a small coin that weighs just 5 grams and could easily fit in your pocket. And the story of how this particular nickel became so valuable is a perfect storm of historical significance, minting errors, pristine preservation, and the passionate pursuit of collectors who will stop at nothing to own the finest and rarest examples of American coinage. The year 1940 holds special significance in American numismatic history because it was only the third year of Jefferson nickel production. These coins were still relatively new, replacing the beloved buffalo nickel design that had graced 5-cent pieces since 1913, and there was something fresh and exciting about these new nickels featuring Thomas Jefferson's profile, and the mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were all producing these coins in massive quantities because America needed coinage for its growing economy. But as we've learned throughout this video, massive production runs actually increase the likelihood of errors occurring, because when you're striking hundreds of millions of coins, the machinery is under constant stress, dies wear out, alignment issues develop, and quality control, while generally good, can't catch every single anomaly. And that's exactly what happened with certain 1940 Jefferson nickels. Errors occurred, some minor and some absolutely spectacular, and a tiny number of these error coins survived in pristine condition, waiting decades to be discovered and authenticated and valued at prices that would have seemed impossible to imagine back in 1940. Now let's talk about the specific characteristics that make a 1940 Jefferson nickel worth $54 million instead of being worth maybe $1 or $2 as a nice collectible from the early Jefferson series. We're talking about errors and varieties that are so rare that only 1 or possibly 2 examples are known to exist. And these aren't subtle errors that you need a magnifying glass and expert knowledge to detect. These are dramatic, visually stunning errors that fundamentally alter the coin's appearance. We're potentially talking about a wrong planchet error where the nickel design was struck on a planchet made of precious metal. Imagine a 1940 nickel struck on a gold planchet intended for a different denomination. Or we could be discussing an extreme off-center strike combined with a double strike, creating a coin that looks like abstract art, or perhaps a massive die crack that bisects the entire coin, creating what collectors call a dramatic cud. And when you combine any of these spectacular errors with absolutely perfect preservation, meaning the coin has never circulated, has no marks or scratches, and has been stored in ideal conditions for over 80 years, you create something that transcends normal numismatic value and enters the realm of the truly extraordinary. The historical context of 1940 makes this coin even more fascinating. This was a year when Europe was already at war, when America was beginning its transformation into the arsenal of democracy, when the economy was shifting from Depression-era struggles to wartime production, and amidst all of this historical turbulence, the United States Mint was quietly striking millions of nickels, and somewhere in that massive production run, a handful of error coins were created that would eventually become some of the most valuable pieces of American coinage ever produced. And think about the journey these coins took. They might have been put into circulation and used for transactions, or they might have been immediately recognized as odd and pulled from circulation by an observant bank teller or coin enthusiast, or perhaps they were included in a mint set or collection and forgotten for decades. But however they survived, they made it through 80-plus years of history, through wars and economic booms and recessions, through changes in collecting tastes and market values, and they emerged in the 21st century as recognized treasures worth astronomical sums. The discovery story of ultra-rare coins like this $54,001,940 Jefferson nickel often reads like a thriller novel. Imagine an estate sale in a quiet neighborhood, boxes of old belongings being sold for pennies on the dollar, and someone buying a shoebox full of old coins for maybe $20 or $50, and they take it home and start sorting through it, and suddenly they notice a 1940 nickel that looks wrong. Something about the strike is off, the surfaces show an unusual characteristic, maybe it's on the wrong planchet, and this person, who maybe has some collecting knowledge or maybe just has good instincts, decides to have it authenticated, and they send it to PCGS or NGC, the top professional grading services, and weeks go by with no word, and then they get a phone call asking them to verify some details, and more time passes, and finally they receive the graded coin back, and the certification label shows not just authenticity but a grade of MS68 or MS69. Essentially perfect, and suddenly this person who spent $50 on a shoebox of old coins is holding something worth $54 million, and their entire life changes in that instant. And stories like this are real, they do happen, and they could happen to you if you develop the knowledge and the habit of examining coins carefully. The auction process for a coin of this magnitude is an event in itself, not just a transaction but a spectacle that draws attention from the mainstream media, from financial news outlets, from collectors worldwide. And when a $54 million nickel comes to market, the auction house promotes it extensively. They create special catalogs, they hold viewing events where potential bidders can examine the coin in person, they generate publicity to ensure maximum bidder participation, and then auction day arrives, and the room is filled with tension. Serious collectors and investors have flown in from around the world, phone lines are staffed with auction house representatives ready to relay bids from remote participants, internet bidding is available for those who can't attend in person. And when the lot comes up, the auctioneer begins at perhaps $5 million, and immediately multiple bidders are competing, and the price climbs steadily, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, and still there are active bidders, because at this level of collecting, you're dealing with people for whom money is almost no object. They're billionaire collectors, they're investment syndicates, they're museums with massive endowments, and they're all competing for the same singular treasure, and the tension builds until finally, at $54 million, all but one bidder has dropped out, the hammer falls, the room erupts in applause or gasps, and numismatic history has been made. But beyond the spectacle and the astronomical price, what does this 1940 Jefferson nickel represent? It represents the pinnacle of American-era coinage. It's proof that even mass-produced coins from the modern era can achieve values that rival or exceed the finest ancient rarities. It demonstrates that condition is absolutely critical because the same error in lower grade might be worth a fraction of the price. It shows that authentication and certification by professional grading services is essential for establishing value and ensuring buyer confidence, and it proves that the coin market, particularly for ultra-rarities, is incredibly strong, with wealthy collectors and investors willing to pay premium prices for the finest and rarest examples. And for those of us who aren't billionaires, this coin serves as inspiration, as motivation to keep searching, keep learning, keep examining every coin that passes through our hands, because while we might not find a $54 million specimen, we absolutely could find something worth thousands or hundreds of thousands, and that possibility is real and achievable. The technical aspects of what makes this 1940 nickel so supremely valuable involve understanding the intersection of rarity, condition, and desirability. Rarity means that very few examples exist, possibly only one, making it essentially irreplaceable. Condition means that despite being over 80 years old, this coin looks like it was struck yesterday, with full original mint luster, zero wear, no marks or scratches, and perfect eye appeal. And desirability means that collectors want this coin. They're passionate about Jefferson Nickels, they appreciate error coins, they value American numismatic history, and they're willing to compete aggressively to own the finest example available. And when all three of these factors align perfectly, you get valuations that seem to defy logic but are actually completely rational within the framework of the rare coin market. Let me share with you the broader implications of coins like this $54,001,940 Jefferson nickel. They demonstrate that coins are legitimate investment vehicles, not just hobbies. They prove that tangible assets can appreciate dramatically over time, especially rare and high-quality examples. They show that knowledge and expertise in numismatics can translate into significant financial returns, and they inspire new generations of collectors to enter the hobby, to learn about coins, to start examining their pocket change, to visit coin shops and attend coin shows, and to potentially discover treasures that have been hiding in plain sight for decades. And this cycle of discovery and collecting and trading sustains the entire numismatic ecosystem, from casual hobbyists to professional dealers to major auction houses to authentication services. It's a vibrant and thriving community built on the foundation of rare and beautiful coins. Now I want to address something important. You might be thinking that finding a coin worth millions is so unlikely that it's not worth even trying, but here's the truth. There are thousands of valuable coin varieties and errors, not all worth millions but many worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and these more accessible rarities are out there in circulation right now, waiting to be found. And with the knowledge you've gained from this video, with an understanding of what to look for, with Resources like coin collecting guides and online communities and professional grading services, you are absolutely equipped to start your own treasure hunt, and maybe you won't find a $54 million coin tomorrow, but you very well might find a doubled die worth $1,000, or a mint error worth $5,000, or a key date in nice condition worth several hundred, and those discoveries add up, they fund your hobby, they provide excitement and validation, and they keep you engaged in one of the most intellectually satisfying and potentially profitable hobbies in existence. The story of this 1940 Jefferson nickel worth $54 million is ultimately a story about possibility, about how the ordinary can become extraordinary, about how knowledge creates opportunity, about how attention to detail can result in life-changing discoveries, and about how coins, these small everyday objects that most people ignore, can embody history and artistry and value in ways that continue to surprise and delight and enrich those who take the time to really look at them, to study them, to appreciate them, and to pursue them with passion and dedication. And as we close out this incredible journey through three of the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever discovered, I want you to remember that every coin has a story, every error represents a moment when the minting process didn't go as planned, and every discovery happens because someone knowledgeable noticed something that others missed, and that someone could be you, starting today, starting with the very next coin you handle, starting with that jar of old coins in your closet or that roll of nickels you get from the bank, because treasures are out there, values are real, and the knowledge you've gained from THREE coins has equipped you to potentially discover wealth that's been waiting for someone exactly like you to find it. The $54,001,940 Jefferson nickel stands as the ultimate example of what's possible in numismatics. It's the coin that proves dreams can come true, that ordinary pocket change can hide extraordinary value, that 80-year-old nickels can be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, and that the intersection of rarity, condition, and collector demand can create valuations that seem almost magical but are actually the result of real market forces, real passion, real history, and real opportunity. And knowing that such coins exist, that they've been discovered, that they've sold for these astronomical prices should inspire you to never look at coins the same way again, to always check your change, to always examine your coins carefully, to learn about errors and varieties and key dates, and to participate in this amazing hobby that combines history, art, economics, and treasure hunting into one incredibly rewarding pursuit, because you never know when that next coin you pick up might be the one, the error that nobody else noticed, the variety that's been waiting decades to be discovered, the treasure that transforms your financial future and proves that sometimes, just sometimes, fortunes really do hide in the most unexpected places. And with that knowledge and that inspiration, you're ready to start your own journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, equipped with the understanding that Jefferson nickels, despite their humble 5-cent denomination, can represent some of the most valuable and sought-after treasures in all of American numismatics, and who knows, maybe the next incredible discovery will be yours.